Drop the gun! Show me your hands!
Welcome to the Weekly Homicide Report, the weekly program where we talk about all the people that needlessly died at the hands of another person. Now let's take a look at this week's graph. I was getting worried about Chicago for a while, thinking they weren't going to give us accurate info this year, but all the weeks of single-digit homicides seem to be in the past. Chicago reported 17 homicides last week, their highest weekly total this year so far. Philly really does its best to keep up with Chicago, but Chicago had 28 homicides in the last 2 weeks and really widened that gap. Last year's numbers would have kept them close, but Philly is 16 behind last year's pace, but still way ahead of all years prior to 2021. They reported 8 last week. New York had 8 reported homicides as well. Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Manhattan, the usual suspects. Houston reported 5 homicides, right on pace with their weekly average. Baltimore reported 6, around their weekly average. Dallas recorded 7, and currently sits 15 higher than where they were at this time last year. Indianapolis passes DC and moves into the main graph. They had 4 last week and sit at 67. Now for just some yearly totals. DC has 66, which is 14 higher than last year at this time. New Orleans, 59, but I don't think the website's being updated properly. It should be much higher. They've been at 58, 59 for the last month. So I might pull them off the list going forward unless I find a new site for them. Kansas City, Missouri shows 51. Columbus, Ohio, 50. Milwaukee, 47. That's 14 fewer than this time last year. Birmingham, 39, Jackson, Mississippi, 28, Portland, 23, Minneapolis, 15, San Francisco, 13, and Rochester, New York sits at 12. There were 16 reported mass shootings last week. That's a big week and definitely shows signs that summer's getting close. I covered a bunch of them and will continue to cover as many as I can. And for perspective, last year at week 16, we only had 147. This year we're at 165. That's 18 more. It's going to get way worse before it gets better. Normally at this point, I would talk about the 4 little ones and 35 slightly older ones who were fatally shot this week, but I'm having problems with these videos and this platform, and I'm thinking this information may be playing a part in that due to their age. So just enjoy the photos. There were 21 reported defensive use of a firearm incidents. I covered a bunch of them and will continue to cover them on a regular basis. We lost 2 officers in the line of duty, both to gunfire. Deputy Sheriff Josh Owen of Minnesota and Reserve Corporal Joseph Johnson of Oregon. I talked more about these in a line of duty video I did earlier this week, which also talked about the loss of Canine Rudy in California, also due to gunfire. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I'll be back next week with the week 17 numbers. Until then, have a great week, and I'll catch you next week.